So this is a project that we should be able to start and finish in one day. We're going to draw a landscape that has a fall theme to it. So here we go. First thing you're going to do is you're going to put your name on the back side. And always do that so people know who it belongs to. There's my name. Then on the front here, when you're drawing your landscape, you have total control over what you include in it. The only thing that I'm going to require is that it has a ground and a sky, which are separated by some type of a horizon line. Anything else that you include is basically up to you. Now I'll remind you that we are trying to do this in a fall or an autumn theme. So you're going to draw a ground line here, or a horizon line. It can be perfectly straight if you want, or it can have some curves to it. I'll put a little hill on mine. Okay, so now that I've drawn that, I'm ready to start adding some details. Since I really want to emphasize the leaves aspect of mine, I definitely want to make sure I have some trees. And I'll just kind of show you a very basic way you can make a tree. Now remember, the closer something is to the front or the bottom of your picture plane, the bigger it should be. The further back it goes on the ground line, or sorry, the further back it goes into space towards the middle ground, the smaller it should get. And then if it's way in the background, we want to make it even smaller. I'm going to put a tree that's kind of in between the foreground and the middle ground. I'll call this middle ground. So when I'm drawing trees, there's that YV tree pattern. So the way you do that is by simply going like so. Okay, so I've got the trunk here, it goes straight up into kind of a Y shape. I'm basically making that look like kind of a bubble letter Y that isn't capped off on the ends. I want to leave that open. You can also see here I've got a little overlap with my ground line. Let me just erase that so that the tree is accurately overlapping that ground line. Now that I've created my Y here, these branches branch off into other Y shapes. Okay, so if we're following along, I have a Y here, which turned into two Ys here and here. And then you can really keep that going and going. The trick to this, though, is each Y that you create should get the branches just a little bit skinnier. That's the way that you eventually kind of end these. That one goes off the page, so that's easy, okay? So now I have a few more Ys, and since this is starting to get tiny, I'm going to turn these into twigs where they're very skinny. Okay, now I'm not too worried about the details on the tree yet, like the leaves, because we are actually going to be adding those with an oil pastel as a very final step. Okay, so there I've got a tree. I still want to include way more in my landscape, and I'm going to do that in time lapse. Okay, so I have created a pretty simple little landscape here. I decided to make sort of a park setting. The sun is getting very low in the sky, so you could either think of this as nighttime setting in, or an early morning that's for a day that's just about to start. You'll notice that I have not included any of the leaves on my branches yet, because those will be added with pastels later. In fact, you're about to see when I color this in, I'm not even going to necessarily add all of the fall colors yet. At this point, we will pause the video so that students can draw with a pencil. Remember your name on the back. Okay, so now it's time to add a little bit of color. We are going to start that with just some colored pencils. Keep in mind that the fall leaves are going to be added on top of that layer with some oil pastels. So as I'm coloring this in, I actually am going to still color some green grass because I know I'll be able to put colorful leaves on top of it. So just something to think about. I'm going to start coloring that in. At this point, we will pause the video so students can color with colored pencils. Once you have it colored in with colored pencils the way that you like, then the last thing is just to grab a few oil pastels that are some nice fall leaf colors, and you can kind of scatter those about. Just a couple of things to keep in mind though. The further back you get, the more those shapes that you put in should be small, and probably the more clustered together they should be. And when I do this, I'm simply just going to place dots all over. I'm not going to draw individual leaf shapes with it. So I'm going to show you that, and at that point my project will be done. Oh, I'm also going to color in that part. I've got a little owl sitting in there, and but he's nice and shaded, so I got to color that in. I just noticed. Okay, here we go. Oil pastel time. And now you should have a completed fall landscape. I'll remind you, you get to decide how much of the oil pastel you want to add to yours. Good luck and have fun.